topic of resilience, the concept basically, and what exactly are the traits in a resilient child. Then we'll be moving on to developing certain factors to build resilience and independence in children staying at home. So now I'll just begin, and we'll just see the slides. I hope it's visible, Midun.
Yes, Shraddha, it's visible.
Okay, great. So, friends, before we begin talking about it further, I would just like to know what is that one word that comes to your mind when you think of resilience. Now, for this, you can use the chat box. Type one or two words in your mind. When you think of resilience, what is it that actually comes to your mind at first? You can begin typing. I'm waiting. Yes, I see one response. I want a couple of more. Coping, strength, absolutely agreed. Some more. Okay, never mind. We'll proceed. Coping and strength definitely remind us of resilience. And this is a technical definition basically to make it more clear. So resilience is nothing but the ability of an individual to bounce back from any kind of adversity they are facing, like stress, challenge, any kind of grief or tragedy, any kind of trauma, and things like that. The ability of the person to bounce back and resume their daily activity, their daily lives back again from square one. And that's why it is so important for an individual to build their resilience, because we can't really control any kind of adversity that is going to strike us. Like for example, we all are going through this pandemic, right? These are some things that are not in our control, but what we can control are these factors in us, like resilience and independence. Now we often wonder and we often try to compare who is a resilient child and who is not a resilient child, and we try to identify the differences between the two. So I'm getting a lot of responses. Thank you for sharing them. We'll proceed now. So who is basically a resilient child? So when a child has that quality of resilience, they are more braver, they are more curious to know about various things, they are more keen in solving different kind of problems, they are open to taking up challenges, and lastly and very importantly, they are very freely, willingly to extend and reach to the outer world. By outer world, I do not mean necessarily people outside their family, but firstly it is the family as a unit to which the child is very freely reaching in times of crisis or adversity, and then of course friends and peers and things like that. So when a child is resilient, these are the major characteristics or the traits which we can observe in the child. Okay. Now, there's one question we often might be thinking, that can resilience be nurtured, developed in a child, or can independence be taught to a child? So, what are your opinions? Do you think it can be taught? If yes, I just need to see a thumbs up. Great. Yes. Thank you. Thank you, Chitra. Thank you, Anushka. Absolutely. So we all agree that it can be taught, and that's why we are gathered here today. Let me just answer the question now. I mean, you all have answered it for me. So now, here is, before I move on to independence, I would like to just answer that question, that absolutely resilience can be changed, it can be nurtured. Same with independence. But always remember, the earlier we nurture these traits in our children, the better it is for a longer situation, for the future, for any kind of problems that they are going to face. Now, moving on to independence in children. Now, I did not specify on this a lot because we all know what independence is. It's a very self-explanatory term. Uh, but what an independent child seems like or looks like are things that I have listed here. So a child who is independent does not feel very vulnerable in situations of any kind of external hazard or crisis. Independence actually gives the child a sense of importance, a sense of belonging. They do not feel that they are victims of the circumstances. Instead, they take responsibilities for themselves and actions which they think they are responsible for. And definitely, resilience and self esteem are something that are fostered if the child has this quality of independence. So, now, friends, the fun part begins. We'll be doing a quick activity. And here I'll give you a situation and I would love to see your responses in the chat box. So, yeah, activity time. Okay, this is called the plane situation. And the situation goes like, if a plane is in the air and the condition of the weather is very poor. So I want you to think and tell me on what factors will the ability of the plane to get through the poor weather and basically reach its destination depend on. Factors could be 1, 2, 5, 6, as many as you can. And I'll probably give you a moment to think because this requires time. So within 2, 3 minutes, I think if you all can come up with answers, preferably in the chat box, it will help. I'll repeat again, what factors will depend on what factors will the ability of the plane to get through the poor weather and to be able to reach the final destination depend on. You can take your time. Oh, I already got responses. Okay, let me just check. Few more responses, please. Okay. How well the pilot is able to see? Absolutely. How the pilot can cope up with the situation? Correct. Proper maintenance work has been done or not? I love these answers, guys. Amazing. The ability of the pilot to handle the stressful situation. Somebody has written crisis management. Amazing. Sticking to the plan. Yes, planning is very important. How well built the aircraft is. And someone has written patience. Thank you so much. So these were wonderful inputs from you all. And now I'll be moving on to what I think, what are the major factors that can help in this situation. I'm sorry, I have to keep on pressing Windows because my laptop keeps hanging. So with the factors which I could think of is definitely the pilot here, the co-pilot, the type of plane that we are dealing with. Most of you mentioned about planning and the situation and things like that. It all covers more or less. The equipments which are available that are handy, which are present at the moment, and of course the severity of the weather, right? Now you must be thinking that why is she giving us such a childish activity? There's a plane, why is she asking us to do something like this? Well, I'll answer that for you now because now I'll be relating it to resilience and independence. All these factors. Okay. So the pilot here we can assume is the child who is on the plane. The co-pilot are basically us, the child's family, friends, teachers, any mental health or physical health professionals like pediatricians, like counselors, like psychologists, like shadow teachers, and things like that, who are there as a support to the child in this situation. Then, of course, is the type of the plane. These are certain traits or characteristics present in the child, some of which are not able to change as the child grows because like I've mentioned here, temperament is something that the child is actually born with and you can't really change it. You can change certain individual traits and characteristics in the child, but not all of them, not the entire part of the child's personality. So yes, the type of plane definitely is important over here. Then of course are the resources available, the equipments which are available. Most of you also mentioned this in the chat box. And finally, the severity and the duration of the poor weather, something that we can absolutely not control. So from here, I would just bring your notice into two major factors. Basically, there's one called the risk factors and one is called the protective factors. Now, I always use the metaphor of an umbrella here. So basically, this is like a seesaw to just a pictorial representation of the risk factors leading to negative outcomes and the protective factors always leading to positive outcomes. Now, like I mentioned about the umbrella. So I've mentioned some of the, like you can see some of the risk factors, which are like raindrops. You can't have any control over them. But what you can control is the shield, the protective layer, that is the umbrella. These are the protective factors leading to a positive outcome, helping in building resilience and independence in your child. So these three factors are going to be the main focus of today. We'll understand how we can foster and develop these to actually build resilience and independence in your children. So the first factor which I will be talking about is initiative. Basically, how the child is learning to take initiatives in regular daily activities at home. Then I'll be talking about the importance of building a healthy attachment and a relationship with the child. And then, of course, we all must be aware of what self-regulation is. If not, nothing to worry. It's a very simple term, and I'll be talking about it towards the end. So, friends, without any further delay, I think I'll move on with the first factor. Okay, so factor one is initiative. And like I mentioned, we all know this, it's a very simple term. The child must learn how to take the first step towards any kind of activity, any kind of task that they are engaging in. That is the first and foremost step of independence. I'm sure you all agree to that. Now, how do we inculcate initiatives? Number one, definitely engage them in play. We all know, since many of us are psychology students today with us, and many of us are parents, so we all know that play is a very important part of a child's development. It not only helps in developing your cognitive capacity or your skills, but also your social skills. Simple things like learning how to wait for your turn, like sharing, and things like that do come up when you're engaging in play. Now, play can basically be of various types. I'm not going to get into the technical terminologies of it. There are some terms like uninvolved play, like parallel play, like cooperative play, and various other terms related to this concept of play. I would like to highlight that cooperative play is something that is going to be our focus, because that really helps in initiation to develop in the child. In cooperative play, the parent and the child together, like the term itself is self-explanatory, they cooperate and they engage in various activities related to the play, right? So it's important that when you are engaging in play with the child, always remember our goal here is to build on initiative. So please do not lead the child. I've mentioned here, let the child lead you. Okay. So if the child is saying that this cardboard is a house and you think that it's a car because it looks like a car to you, please do not tell the child at this moment that, I've made a car. It's a car. The child is strongly believing it's a house, and in that period, you do not dismantle the child's belief. Instead, you agree. It's okay. It's a house. Okay. So now, what do we do? Should we put something inside the house? You can guide the child, of course, but don't let the child be behind you in the process of leading. Let the child lead, and you please follow. So in this manner, the child will actually be able to initiate the first step, and this can definitely very beautifully happen through play itself. There are some pictures here. So this is an activity prepared by people at home itself. Similar to this, there are various things that you can prepare for the child, like crossing the hurdles or obstacles at home. Of course, building blocks, most of us have this material at home, so this can easily be used. Otherwise, I would just like to mention that on the Insight website, there's a beautiful webinar on do-it-yourself play activities for children at home. And they've also spoken about the various activities in different sensory modalities for children with special needs. So you can probably have a look. I'm not getting deeper into play because that topic is not for today's webinar. One more thing, when we are including the child in play, it's important that you constantly ask the child questions. These are things that you might want to note down or just remember, because simple things like this will help your child move towards one step of independence, right? So engage in asking questions. Oh, I see you've made this into a purple tree. Now what are we going to do with this? Does the tree have any fruits? Does the tree give shelter to animals? The child will be like, oh yes, I have so many animal toys here, I should put them under the tree, and things like that. Engage in that conversation. That is cooperative play. Collaborate with your child, and again I'm saying, let the child please lead you. Then moving on to another concept to initiation is learn from your children. And trust me, children love it when you learn from them, because they feel that, you know, they belong here. There is someone who is actually keen on learning from them. And children today are so smart. They know so many things that probably parents are not really aware of, especially when it comes to technology, coding, and various other interest areas depending on the child. So you know, pretend like you are really keen on knowing. You can just pretend like having a notebook in front of you when your child is teaching something, and take down points, ask them questions. Okay, so you made it so simple for me, is that how we do it? Things like that, you know, make the child believe that you are listening to the child very patiently, and you are actually learning from them. This will not only help them to initiate, but will also boost up their confidence level. They will know that they have someone who is acknowledging them in the world. So in times of crisis, they will definitely come to you. They will definitely open up, because we have complaints that my child is not even reaching out to me. How do I deal with his problems? The basic solution to this is start from the very beginning, and engage in activities like this where you can learn from them, where they can lead you in various aspects. So that's about learning from them. Moving on, of course, take their help in any kind of activity that you are doing. Now in this, we must remember that every child has their own capability and their own pace of doing things. We might be practicing if I take an example here, cooking, okay? Now we might be doing it for a long time. So we have our own pace. The child has just started, but we have to engage them in that particular task. So we need to be patient at that moment and let the child do it according to their pace, because remember, again, the goal is to help the child initiate, to help the child be independent, not the perfection of the task. So it's very important that we hold all our patients together. It is difficult sometimes, trust me, it is difficult. And people complain that, you know, my child is taking so much time. And on the other side, there are some children who are so quick with it that parents, you know, they'll just keep thinking, what else should I give my child? Oh my god, he or she has done things so fast. So like I mentioned, pace over here, always remember, is different for different children. And you are just engaging them in various activities. The best thing to ask children is, the best thing is not to basically tell them that help me in this, but always ask them, these are the things that I am struggling with, or these are the things that I don't feel like doing alone. Would you like to help me? Let the child please choose whichever activity they want to do, and then you proceed further, instead of, you know, burdening them with the fact that help me in this. So changing certain words, changing our way of talking to children really helps in this, and you will see they are really keen on helping. Now many people also have this question that my child is really small, and what help can I take from my child? Well, I see a chat. Yeah, so there's a question that the child doesn't want to listen how to do it, say in cooking. So uh, basically, that's what I mentioned, that you give the child different options. Don't expect that the child will help you in cooking. Ask them for their interest areas, and that's how you need to proceed further. Instead of giving them your options or opinions, let them choose from the different options, right? Um, Now I was talking about the fact that if the child is really small and parents often feel that what help will that child be able to do, simple things like at least the child can hold one side of your garbage bag while you put the garbage. Simple things like this, you know, will make a real difference because they will know that I am actually contributing to this family. I have a role to play, and that's where initiation, that's where your leadership qualities, your independence are all starting to develop. Okay, a very important and a very interesting part is engaging in a lot of problem solving activities. Problem solving is a crucial part. We are all aware of this. It has to be inculcated in the child because in any kind of situation, it's we expect the child to come out of it, right? That's why we are here. We want the child to be resilient and independent. So it's our role and responsibility to teach them various kinds of strategies of problem solving. How we are going to do this? Definitely through a lot of problem solving games and activities at home. One is demonstrated here. They've actually made I mean, basically, what the child has to do is blow this little dice or whatever it is into this cup, and they have to aim, and it has to reach the cup. Things like this, like I mentioned before, also making certain games where there are hurdles where the child has to cross. These are the activities. Now, if somebody does not want to develop activities, problem solving can also be taught through a lot of storytellings. Give them storytelling, sorry, give them lot of situations of real life incidences. They could be your examples put in a very simple way, certain experiences that you have gone through, and tell them that this is the character. You can also tell it happened with me, but I would recommend make it into a fun story so that the children can get engaged, because all kids love stories. If you think they are not paying attention to your stories, then the issue is in the way you are telling the story to them and not the child, because it has been proven by research and various other aspects that yes, storytelling really is an helpful tool in a child's development. So I've given an example here. Now this is called a problem situation storytelling. So here, what goes wrong in the story is something that the child needs to identify. So here the character has basically lost his puppy when he has gone out to the park. And how does the problem get fixed? Here you can give various solutions, and the child can probably choose or come up with their own ideas or solutions. Now I would recommend here that most of the time what happens is parents want the child to do that task, want the child to solve the problem quickly, so they themselves give them the solution. But that's not really recommended, because we are not actually helping the child for the long run. I always suggest that, you know, please let the child choose. You are there to guide the child. You can probably give them the pros and cons of the various situation solutions that they have chosen, but please don't directly give them the solution. Don't hand over things to them as soon as they ask. Let them struggle, let them go through that phase of failure. That's very important. You be there, acknowledge that failure and support the child, but do not give them the solution or the answer. There's one more fun activity that you can do with children. It's called the problem solving wheel. Here, basically, as you can see, it is like a wheel itself, and this is called the choice wheel also. So here there are, you can make various slits in it. Otherwise, you can probably print this out. It is free to be printed online. And why I mentioned slits is because sometimes we don't want to waste material to every day make a wheel like this. So the slits will have various cards in it, which will be the solutions, and you could probably put the problem in the center. If this is not clear, this is something like it will look when once you have made it. Because children really love visuals, you can probably draw or print out things and materials so that they are attracted to it. Some people also use an arrow, and the child is asked to spin it around for any kind of problem. And wherever the spin wheel is stopping, there, you know, that problem, the solution is analyzed. The parents are there to talk about the pros and cons, and that's how any kind of solution is coming into the picture. Like, you know, if the child is facing issues of bullying at school, probably we could take them through all these strategies and tell them that which is the best that they could do. If they do this particular thing, what is the possible outcomes that they are going to face, and always encourage them to take a step further. So this will really help. Again, because we are talking about initiation, they will initiate, take a step further. Yes, of course they will be disappointed, they will be afraid because problems, they are facing problems, but we are there to support them, right? And these are the various strategies through which a child can actually be a very good problem solver and of course a critical thinker. So this strategy really helps. You can probably print it out like I mentioned and use it in your life. Okay, that was all about initiation. And factor 2 is about attachment. Like I mentioned, the second protective factor in building resilience is your attachment styles. Now, what exactly do you mean by attachment? Again, I would like you all to give one or two words that come to your mind when you're thinking about attachment in the chat boxes, please. Bond, absolutely. Support, love and time, amazing. Feeling of being loved and responsibility, and of course the bond we share. So guys, you are absolutely right. Yes, connection also. Thank you, Venkat. Sharing problems or experiences, definitely. I did not put the definition here because I knew this is something that we all can ask you all to probably answer, and you can come up with the idea. So you all are absolutely right. Attachment is nothing but a deep, enduring bond or a connection between, usually begins with the primary caregiver, which in most cases is the mother, and then the secondary caregiver, which could be the father, and then it moves on in our adult lives. So in attachment styles in your childhood, your infant years play a significant role in later years of life in being able to establish a healthy social connect with other people around, being able to basically have healthy adult relationships, and most of the time it is a significant role behind your any kind of romantic relationships or any relation of other kind. So definitely we have to focus on building a strong attachment with your child when it comes to focusing on building resilience and independence. Okay. So what are the factors that come into the picture when we talk about building healthy attachment styles? Is, of course, you all have mentioned these words: healthy bonds, emotional connection, social support. And these are the things that we need to focus on. There are a few more, and I'll be talking about them later. Now, basically, how do we develop these three things: a healthy bond, emotional connection, and a social support? First and foremost, expose the child to people who are actually caring for the child. So, for example, saying things like, you know, I spoke to grandma about how brave you are, and she's really proud of you. So, here the child will have a sense of belief that there is an emotional connect established. There are people who care for me. I can turn to them in any kind of crisis. I just given a very simple example of a grandma. It could be anything, it could be anyone. So, you know, think about who are the people who the child is really close to, and always tell the child that these people really believe in the child's capabilities. You can think of this based on your own individual experiences. Then, of course, healthy bond, emotional connection, social support really develops if the child, if you make the child believe that you are going to be there for this. It's important to acknowledge what the child is feeling. Sometimes you might need to label their emotions over here, because children might not be very clear about what they are feeling or going through. So it's important that we acknowledge that feeling for them. Then of course, we need to focus on spending lot of family quality time. Now this is something that is there everywhere in social media, television, that you spend quality time with your child and things like that. And now I think it's a great opportunity because most of us are at home. We are working from home, of course. That is difficult, I definitely agree, but we somewhere have more time to spend with our families. So it's important that we use this time for the betterment of the child, for the child's development, for the child's independence and resilience. So simple things like sharing your experiences throughout the day over dinner, and talking about how difficult your day was, maybe talking about your frustrations, because children need to know that these are emotions that regular people face, and it's very normal to face this in any kind of crisis or situation. Then of course, like I mentioned before, involving them in various activities which they like doing, learning from them, these all come under quality time with your family. Of course, you can watch a beautiful movie together. You can ask the child to choose what they would like to watch. That really helps. And sometimes overt expression for all children, especially at a younger age, some cuddles, some hugs and things like that would really help to strengthen the emotional connection and make your attachment more stronger. Okay, so I thought of introducing an activity which works in a maximum number of cases. Basically, what we are trying to do here is we are trying to quantify the qualitative family time that we are spending, right? So it's called Fill Your Bucket task. And here you have various versions to it. You can invent your own versions also. Here you can have a bucket. It doesn't have to be like bucket in the literal meaning, like that balti which we have. No, I'm not saying that. A small glass or anything like that, you can obviously decorate that for the child. And then as you decide at the beginning of the day with your child and other members of the family that these are the things we are going to engage in today. And whenever one particular thing is over, you or your child together can probably write that in a piece of paper and fill in your bucket. So you have a to-do list in the morning, and end of the day you see whether you are actually a bucket filling family or not, and you are going to feel good about it. So these are the basically the picture below is indicating the kind of outcomes of this. So how does a bucket filling family look like? People smile, they cuddle, they play together, they listen to each other, maybe they share toys and they work together, they read books and things like that. It sounds like somebody is complimenting you. Then there is a calm voice, there are nice manners, it is respectful, there is a lot of laughter. And of course, how does it feel like? The child feels very happy, very safe. The environment is supportive. People are friendly around the child. There is, they are kind. The child is kind of comfortable in that environment. This is just a briefer, and people can have various experiences of this. It doesn't have to be sticking to what is mentioned here. This is just to give you a hang of it. So yeah, please try filling your bucket. It's a fun activity, works really well for teenage also because they can come up with new ideas as to how to spend quality time. So it's really helpful. Okay, so attachment styles, when we're talking about them, it's important to know that there are two more important factors attached here. One is definitely being good role models to your children, and then of course is nurturing optimism. I'll be explaining this a little more in detail later. So, being good role models, we all know that 80% of the children learn through modeling, through observation, and mostly it is their parents in the early stages which are the child's role models. So, it's really helpful if parents themselves can model their resiliency, simple things like give you a simple example here. In ways of communication itself, you can tell the child, you know I have been trying to make this recipe perfect since so many days, but at the end something happens and I really mess it up. It's really disappointing. Stress on this word, the child should know, but I try. and I know that I can do it someday. I will be able to do it, isn't it? It's not that difficult. So what are you doing here? You're trying to model in front of the child that any kind of crisis does not last forever, and you are trying to show that believe in yourself, and these are the things that you can control, you can build. I see a lot of comments on the chat box. I'm sorry, I'll answer them a little later. I'll because the flow will break, right? So towards the end, definitely I'm going to answer these questions and comments. So basically, yeah, being very good role models to your children will help, will also strengthen that attachment in your child. Now, as we all know that being resilient comes with nurturing a lot of optimism, having positive thoughts and hope and things like that in your child. How are you going to do this? Now, guys, it's important, like I mentioned before also, that acknowledge the child's worldview. Don't think that because the child is a child, then the problem is too small. Most of the time, especially in earlier days, what used to happen is parents used to say that this is a very tiny problem, you'll be able to do it. Why are you fussing about it? Why are you creating a fuss? So that happens, and we are somewhere not acknowledging the child's view over there. We are not exactly empathizing with the child, even though we want to, we intend to. We are not doing this intentionally. So consciously remember that acknowledge your child's worldview, and also once you have acknowledged, you give them a different worldview from a more mature, from your perspective, right? Um, a simple, I see cute stars and hearts. I don't know why people are doing this, but it's cute. Thank you. Okay, so moving on to the example which I was giving you. Basically, just think of it. Now, right now, children are not able to go out and play, and they miss that. They miss being with their friends. They miss school. Those who are in their teenage, some of them, I mean, they used to bunk classes. We all did at some point. They miss doing that. So it's a really disappointing and frustrating feeling, right, throughout the day. So you acknowledge that. You say things like, it's disappointing, isn't it, that you can't really go out, you can't really go to school and enjoy with your friends. I understand that. So what are the things that we can do instead? Would you like to plan it out, and then maybe we can collaborate and do it together? So what you're doing here is you are nothing but you are teaching the child to utilize the resources available at the present moment, if you can relate it to the plain situation. And through this, what the child will learn is that in any kind of crisis, instead of focusing on what is not in my hand, what I have lost, I will actually focus on how I can utilize the present resources to solve a particular problem. So it is all connected. These three factors are basically interconnected to each other. And that's how, through simple conversations and talks like this, you can actually nurture optimism in your children. So this is the example that I gave you. I quoted it so that people can maybe relate and read it later when I was talking about being good models of resiliency. Great. Now, last in this factor is, of course, you need to make them believe that they have the ability in them to cope up with any kind of situation. And whatever I have spoken till now will help you to make the child and believe themselves. So this is a little engine that I've shown you here. And the engine thinks that it can, it can, it can. And then finally, the engine believes that I know I can do it. And then the entire train runs. So this is exactly what we need to inculcate in our children. They need to basically know that my parents are really believing in the fact that I can cope, I can deal with the situation. They are there, they are constantly going to support me because I have a very good attachment with them. I share a strong bond. I am a part of this family. They also have acknowledged me so many times, and I have seen them being resilient themselves. So that will give them a belief to be able to cope and know that they can do it. Now, friends, coming to factor 3, a very important factor, that is self-regulation, and is really, really important in moving towards the step of resilience and independence. Now, self-regulation we have heard about, we have read about, we have seen videos, there are many experiments done. So it is nothing but the ability of the child, because we're talking about children here, to understand and manage their own emotions and their own behavior. It includes, of course, your behavioral regulation, that is your actions, and your emotional regulations, how you are reacting on an emotional level in any kind of crisis situation. So for this, to make it a little more clear, and if you are bored till now, then to, just wake you up, I'll be showing a small clip of an experiment that was done with children. And then I will ask your views on it on the chat box. So just wait for the video. Okay, so let me just tell you, it's called the marshmallow test, and we'll see how it goes.
Okay, sit in that chair. All right, here's the deal. Marshmallow for you. You can either wait, and I'll give you another one if you wait, or you can eat it now. When I come back, I'll give you another one, so then you'll have two. But stay in here and stay in the chair till I come back, okay? All right. I'm gonna go do something and then I'll come back.
It smells yummy. It smells really good.
All right, so it's up to you. You can have it now or you can wait. Okay? I'll be back. Stay in the chair, okay? Okay. All right, so I'm gonna leave and then I'll come back, okay? So you can either eat it right now or you can wait. Either way, okay? Okay. How'd you do? Did you do good? You did? You wanted to eat it, didn't you? Yeah. So did I tell you to give you another one? Okay, now you can have both. You need them.
Okay, I hope that was a kind of refresher. So I would like to know in the chat box that what do you think about this activity, and if it's too long to type, you're free to please answer this by unmuting yourself. I would love that. Yes, someone has written patience. Patience can be taught. This was one of the motive of this activity. Some more comments, please, before I proceed. Self-control. Absolutely. So yes, this was about delay of gratification. I'll move on to the slides. Okay. Just a moment.
I think Sunita raised hand. Sunita, you want to share something?
Yes, by the time I move on, you can just please share. Sunita, yes, we are waiting. You can go on.
I think she probably done it by mistake or something. Yeah, you can go ahead.
Okay, okay. I'll just move ahead. Now I think the screen should be visible. Is it visible now?
Yes, yes, you can probably maximize it.
Yeah,
Full screen.
I'll do that. Okay, so before I proceed with the gist of the video, just letting you know why self-regulation is so important, because it gives the child, of course, the ability to control their impulses, express their emotion in socially appropriate manners, be very good decision makers, and of course, be more independent and manage themselves in situations of crisis or stress. This was about, like I mentioned, delayed gratification. The experiment basically had the motive of, helping the child to understand that if they delay the immediate temptation or gratification of any kind of reward, at the end they'll be getting more of that reward. So that was the purpose, and it is widely used to teach children strategies of self-regulation and basically build that skill in them. Now, this was, somebody wants to speak, someone has unmuted themselves. Okay, I think it was by mistake. Anyway, I'll proceed. Now, this was just an experiment which showed how the child can resist a particular marshmallow. So this has applicability in various other situations in one's life. Children, we have seen that there are a lot of temper tantrums. Parents are fed up because they are spending too much time on their mobile screen, on video games, or when there was no lockdown, that time we all know that, a child crying their lungs out when they were at a grocery store because they wanted that particular object or thing, right? So it is applicable in those kind of situations in our day-to-day life, and I'm going to tell you certain strategies which will help in the step of self-regulation. Number one is, of course, very simple, self-explanatory, is avoidance. So you, over here in avoidance, what you are doing is you are trying to avoid that immediate I mean, if the example of the marshmallow is here, so how you can probably avoid the child from being tempted by it? If I think if the experimenter would have covered the marshmallow, then there would not be a very strong smell of that, and the child would have to some extent been able to control and that immediate gratification. So you can probably avoid that particular thing at that moment. Hide them from the child's sight. This works at younger ages because children still do not have that concept of, if something is not in front of me, they think that it doesn't really exist. So that happens in very early stages of childhood. So you can probably remove that object. It could be anything. It could be a cookie or any toy that the child is really really demanding at that moment, because of which the child is having temper tantrums. Further, sometimes children also have meltdowns and things like that. So easiest thing to do is, if it is possible at that moment, please avoid it. And of course, as the child grows up, you can probably explain them the purpose of why you are doing this. Sometimes children have very good memory, so they do remember certain things that, mama or papa, why did you hide this from me that time? I used to cry for it. explain them why you did it, because now they have reached that maturity to understand, and they'll probably internalize this in them and use it in any kind of situation in their life in future. So avoidance really helps. uh, Apart from that, sometimes it's not possible to practice this, especially when the child has grown up. You can use positive distractions around middle childhood. This really helps. So now, for example, there was only one child in that experiment or the test who was actually able to control and later got the reward. All of them either smelled and then tasted a bit, and there was a girl who ate it without even caring for the reward that was to be obtained, right? So here, if we could use positive distractions, like what was that child who was able to do this doing? He was playing music on his cheek, on the table. He was trying to distract himself unknowingly, of course, from that particular temptation. So you can probably induce or introduce these positive distractions in your child, maybe imagining about some other kind of food, at least to resist that particular thing at the moment, or maybe singing a song, maybe engaging them in any other activity or task that they were wanting to do throughout the day and haven't been able to do. So these are some positive distractions. They should be positive for the child. Never ask them to imagine or think about situations where they have been hurt, where they have fallen down, because then of course they will pick up that marshmallow or whatever you're trying to ask them to avoid and probably engage in that activity to have that feeling of satisfaction, right? So always remember the distraction should be positive in nature. Then this strategy is really helpful for teenagers and children a little younger than that. This is called abstraction. For example, if the child is constantly telling you that I really want to watch television right now, and you might be feeling frustrated that, oh my god, this is getting on my nerves. What you can try is maybe be creative in this. You're free to decide on what you want to do. So abstraction is thinking about something in abstract form. To simplify it further, what you can basically do is, you see what the shape of the television is, let the child answer. Even if the child is saying it looks circular to me, don't worry, it's fine. Okay, so it's circle, right? Now let's find out, let's go for a scavenger hunt and find out all the circular things in different objects in our house and probably bring them together, and then we'll talk about it. So at that moment, this especially works for children who are in that exploratory stage where they want to try out different things. So they'll get all the objects in the house which are of that particular shape, and you have been successful in delaying that gratification for a decided period of time. When you do abstraction with the child, you can invent based on the child's interests and needs what are the abstraction strategies that you want to try out. I just gave you a very simple example, and this has been proven to be very beneficial for children to manage and regulate their emotions, and of course self regulation. Okay. Now, of course, self-directed speech, which we call as positive thinking, positive self-talk, and things like that. So this is from a book. It's called I'm Hungry and I Can Wait. So this again talks about self-regulation, and you can probably tell the child to practice this. What you can do is you tell the child that the goal, clearly define the goal for the child, that at the end of the wait you will get only one extra marshmallow, like the experimenter very clearly mentioned, right? And tell the child that for this you have to wait. If you wait, you will get, repeat this if required, if you wait you will get another extra marshmallow. If you wait, you will get extra screen time. If you wait, you will get this thing, whatever it is, right? So the child will tell or talk to himself or herself throughout that, I need to wait and I'll get that. I need to wait. It's only one cookie and I know it. I need to wait. Things like that will obviously help your child. And if the child masters this task, like we all know, in any kind of crisis situation, in any kind of difficulty that they are facing later in their lives, what they can do is engage in positive self-talking, which generates from little activities like this. One of it is self-directed speech. Now, self-regulation is very well stimulated by, very well developed by turn-taking games or activities, or you can involve turn-taking in any kind of daily task that you want the child to learn. So always use terms like my turn, your turn, and sometimes for very little children, you can probably make it into a, you know, rhyme sort of thing that they love enjoying, and they can actually repeat that in their mind, right? Here I've used a picture of brushing because I'll be talking about how a simple activity like this you can use turn taking. Now, a child is growing and a child wishes to take responsibility, but you as a parent, as a caregiver, want the child to learn that in a proper manner. We all do, all parents have their expectations, that's fine. So here, instead of telling the child how to do it, let the child first put the toothpaste on the brush, and then you say that now it's mama's turn, and now you are modeling that entire activity for the child. The child is thinking that it's a turn taking activity which is happening, but actually they are observing how mama is doing it, right? So that's how they will be able to acquire that particular skill. This can be done in any and every activity, and your child can master the skill of the thing that you want to teach them. And of course, remember, the child is learning self regulation, the child is learning how to wait for their turn. So turn taking is a fun way and a very effective way towards self regulation and towards mastering or learning different skills: brushing their teeth, tying their shoelaces, and laying the table, or anything of that matter. And like I mentioned before also, that it's important to acknowledge that regulation or any kind of crisis that they are facing, because we're talking about regulation here, I'll stick to that. The fact that they are waiting for that reward is frustrating and challenging for the child. In the experiment, by the way, the child was just asked to delay that marshmallow, preventing themselves from eating the marshmallow only for 15 minutes. Yes, when I was, when I was studying about this experiment, I was shocked to see that, okay, it was just for 15 minutes. I can do it so easily when it comes to anything. But for a child, it is very difficult. And as parents, as people who are taking care of them, as anyone who's a part of the child's life, we need to acknowledge the fact that that wait is really frustrating and difficult. You might want to tell the child that, okay, I think it's really difficult for you, I understand that, but let's wait. We'll get two marshmallows at the end, or you will get what you want at the end. And once the child has been able to successfully, been able to delay that particular gratification at that moment, it's important that we celebrate it. Give the child a pat on the back, clap for the child. Yay, you've done it. You've actually waited. Here is your gift. You saw the experimenter who was giving the marshmallows at the end to the child who was able to do it. How happy was she? How her expressions were, right? So that kind of tells the child that I have been able to do this, and it's a big achievement for me that I have been able to delay this gratification. And that develops something called cognitive hardiness, uh, which towards the adult ages plays a very significant role in dealing with any kind of adversity, because the child knows that I have been able to master the task of self-regulation here. So yes, of course, acknowledging the child really helps. And I think helping a child to make a specific plan, giving them choices, lot of opportunities and options to choose for. Here you have to really use your brains and your creativities and imagination, because you need to come up with a lot of activities that the child can choose from. If you give them a wider option, they can actually make better decisions, or seek a solution to any kind of problem. And this will help them, of course, to make better decisions, control their actions, and have a sense of mastery in their life, and become better versions of themselves eventually. So I've listed an example here. In the morning, at the beginning of the day, you can probably ask the child, what are the things that you would like to do today, right? And then give them a lot of options. If they want to come up with options, encourage that, and then make them learn how to prioritize this, that what are the things that we're going to begin with doing, and why, and the pros and the cons and things like that, to make a better choice, to have a planned schedule. this really helps, very well helps with children with special needs, especially those who are struggling with, those who want constant stimulations, like children with ADHD. So what happens is, if you give them a structure, it really helps them to organize and plan their day, and probably they can tick the activities that they had done as and when they are completed. So summing up whatever we spoke about today and things that you can take back is: inculcate a lot of play with the child, engage in various problem solving activities, and remember, you are just a guide, a facilitator, a role model to the child. Please do not give them the task, I mean, give them the solution right in their hand. If they really want a cookie jar which is at a very high height and they can't reach it, please don't hand it over to them. Instead, give them various kind of stools that they can climb on, and they can choose which one to climb on. And please, what your role is going to be here, you just have to hold and support the child so the child does not fall down. Do not hand over the cookie jar here. You are just the guide and a role model and just a facilitator. And of course, I have emphasized on acknowledging the child's emotion, trying to understand them better, and accepting that it is normal to feel like, you are facing difficulties. It is normal to have that feeling of disappointment, sense of failure in life, and things like that. But always, we are there for you. We believe in the fact that you can cope up with different things. I would end by a beautiful quote: building resilience in your children does not mean trying to toughen them up, but it means working with them through struggles and being a source of loving, unconditional support. Here is a little bit of self promotion. So, I run a YouTube channel, like Midhun said in the beginning, and that's the name of the channel. If you just type my name, you will get on YouTube, because my surname is something very unique. Just remember, it's a single D in Shraddha, not a double D. And that's my Gmail, shraddhabher@gmail.com. Any kind of collaborations, live sessions, webinars, write-ups, or making videos related to mental health, you can feel free to contact me here. And please subscribe to my channel. There are a lot of videos on topics related to mental health. And I think I would open up for question answers. And now probably Midhun, you can take over.
One second. Hi. So probably we can take a few questions. So I think, Shraddha, you can probably look at the chats. A lot of people have posted some questions on the chats. So you can probably look at the questions on the chat.
Okay, somebody has asked, it's not really relevant to today's topic, but I think it's a student. Somebody's asked, what is a good institute to get trained in child psychology? So I don't think in India there are good enough institute which train you specifically in child psychology. It comes as a paper with your masters, but you can always try abroad. Now there are a lot of e-certification courses available, and I have done it from one of the universities abroad itself. And that's how I did my course, because that was a professional diploma in child psychology. I had to submit a lot of assignments and I got points, and that's how I did it. So that's an authentic place for doing your child psychology training. Okay.
There's a question from Venkat.
Yes.
He has told that most of the suggestions are impossible for us. A sitting tolerance is a big issue. So how do you work with the child if there's a sitting tolerance issue?
All your suggestions are virtually impossible for us. Yeah, so sitting tolerance, basically, what you can do is engage the child in activities that the child is interested in, and then the tolerance will develop, especially for children who have ADHD. They want constant stimulations. So you can tell the child in advance that after you complete this task, you are going to get a different activity. The child has that expectation in his or her mind, and that will increase the span of tolerance for the child.
What if the child has a know-it-all attitude?
What? Know
What
it
if
all
the child
attitude.
has attitude?
Yeah, many people have that attitude, and we should, I think, accept that. Somewhere even I was like that when I was a child, and that acknowledgement is needed. And then what you should do is, here modeling really helps. children learn this know-it-all attitude mostly from their parents. They have somewhere seen, I'm sorry to say this, but big time modeling really influences these ideas in them. They learn it from there. And if the child has a know-it-all attitude, ask the child for help, that okay, if you think you are very good at this, I would like to learn from you. And that's how you can inculcate the fact that even if the child is knowing a lot of things, when the child is teaching you, the child will know that okay, these are the areas where I should really work on, and my mama has not understood this really well, so probably I don't know everything, but I can work towards it.
Yeah, I think probably you should let the child do it, fail, and then you should probably teach the child. That
Absolutely.
works well. From our audience, does anybody have any questions or something that you'd probably want to share from your own experience, in terms of teaching resilience and independence to children? Because we all would love to learn from each other as well. So, any of you want to share anything?
Yeah, I want the audience to speak. It would be great to hear your views.
Yes.
Yeah, Shraddha, this is Venkat here. I think, yeah, overall, it was a good session, right? Are you speaking about personal examples from our own lives or from our kids' perspective?
I was talking about your kids' perspective also, as well as how we as parents can involve in developing these two things that we spoke about today in children. So both the perspectives I have actually seen, and obviously I also spoke about how you can identify the child's perspective from their point of view and acknowledge that before proceeding further.
Okay, sure.
Thank you.
So, yeah.
Anyone else? Your views, your feedback, where I need to improve,
Yeah, you can put it in
any
the chat if
questions?
you don't want to.
Yeah, sure. You can chat.
Yeah, you can put it in the chat. Thank you, Ankusha.
Thank you, Ankusha.
So we have shared a feedback form and the video link on. Okay, yeah, Priya, go ahead.
Yeah, Priya.
Priya, you can unmute and speak,
Thank
Priya.
you, Tanya.
Yeah, I have a question. See, do once they go, like you, many of the cases which you were speaking about was for younger children, like, up to 4 years, 5 years, like 6 years. Once
Yes.
they start going to school, they are having exposure to different type of kids in the school, and different. The teachers are also. I mean, we cannot say the teachers will keep such an environment in the school because of their pressures. So such. Type of behavior starts rubbing on our child also, because although we try to give a very good atmosphere at home, or we are very polite, the children start, yeah, I mean, as they grow, they know many more things, they get exposure to it. So what happens? I mean, I have observed in my child that whatever the friend says, whatever is happening outside is more important. And then they also start becoming a bit rude at home, like they don't want to listen much. And we constantly have to keep telling them, like, you need to tone down, like, all such things. So I have found this a lot of things getting picked up from school, because there are some kids who are very aggressive, and because of that temperament, I mean, even my child may be having that temperament, so it just gets picked up. So how advise to attend to this problem?
Priya, very valid question, and it's a very common question also. So basically, the factors like I was mentioning throughout, these are the things that you can't really control, right? That's what the entire thing was about. What we can control are the factors which I already mentioned. Now, the child will pick up certain things, and sometimes like you have mentioned very well, that you want them to tone down. So when the child is growing up and acquiring things from school, it's always good to include situations and various stories, and ask the child that if you were in the situation, what would you do? Or if I'm asking you to tone down, the child is not listening, so ask the child that how will the child actually be able to overcome a particular situation, and what would they do if they were in your place. So that's how the child will try to listen to you. And there are a lot of factors that are not in our control. Always remember that these things will happen. They are a part of growing up, and as the child grows up, the child begins to make friends, and that becomes a second part of socialization, right? So a lot of things will be acquired, and you will see a lot of changes in the child's behavior. Acknowledge that, accept that, and of course give them situations, do role plays and things like that at home. So that really helps. Midun, would you like to add on to this?
I think, every child is a product of both environment and the family, right? So most of our parents, like, we have an idea of the child, but the child also has an idea of himself. So as and when he interacts with the society, he sees certain things that would be value for him, and he'll probably add that to his character as well, right? So I think that should be fine. That's how all of us grew. So I mean, I have like no negative opinions on that. But there are things that you don't teach at home, which the child also has to learn to survive in the world, which is often taught by your peers and from the pressures of the world,
Right.
right?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, true. Thank you for answering.
Thank you,
Thank
Priya.
you.
Any other questions we have?
In the chat box, not really.
Okay. So then thank you for everyone. Thank you for taking your time. And we know like a lot of parents and messages saying today is Eid and Varalakshmi Puja and all those things. We also didn't know when we organized the session that this is happening to be on as a day like that. So thanks a lot for coming on a day where you have a lot of festivities and all those things happening. So go have fun. Thanks a lot for joining us, and we'll keep you updating on our new sessions as well. I think we have shared both the feedback form and the YouTube link. So the session will be uploaded there. So any of you looking for play activities, there is a previous session we conducted on play. Probably you can refer to that, and there is a lot of information about various play activities you can do both for special needs children as well as normal children over there. You can refer to that video as well. So thank you guys. Thanks everyone. Thank you everyone for attending the session as well.
Thank,
Thank you,
thank you so
Shraddha, for
much.
taking your time.
Thank you, Midun. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
I'll close it, Shraddha.
Yes, you can close it.